Technology will not let your hair be great today.
I mean, this is just proof that white men are just creating everything without us in mind is what is happening. Some engineer did not think my Senegalese twists needed some space.
Doing the most, or else we'll go crazy. Maybe Michelle and Barack can come save me. Spinning around, I need some therapy that's free. Look to my phone as soon as I wake up, losing control. But neither will save us getting it wrong. But at least we try. We try. I really, really like it when you say my name, like Frasier. I really, really like it when you say those things. Tell me something good. I really, really like it when you say my name, like Frasier. I really, really like it when you say those things. Tell me something good.
Hi, you guys! It's another episode of Black Frasier. I'm just going to talk to the camera instead of looking at you, Bake Off. Is that okay? I'm kidding. Welcome to another episode of Black Frasier, you guys.
Thanks for having me.
As always, I'm joined in our makeshift studio by my co-producer, my editor, my sausage supplier.
I'm not a bloody farmer.
You don't like sausage supplier? It's hard to
No.
say. Sausage supplier.
Sausage supplier.
Sausage supplier.
Oh, sausage supplier.
Yes. Do you like that title?
No,
Oh.
it's not my favorite by a long way.
Well, we are in for a treat today. We have a fantastic episode coming up. I mean, we are 6.5 months into the core, babe.
Yeah,
How are you holding up?
poorly. I think,
Why?
however I was doing before we last checked in,
Yeah.
just double how bad it is.
What do you mean?
I think you and I are both getting a bit cabin feverish of just the routine of waking up, working all day,
Yeah.
going to finish working like, 7, 8-ish. Sometimes
Yeah.
I finish at 4, but don't tell anyone.
But I never finish at 4
No,
p.m.
I know you don't, but I do. Sometimes I'm just like, screw it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's okay. I mean, yes, we are feeling cabin feverish. I just would like to be in a space where, I don't hear your farts while you're taking a shit.
But they're the highlight of your day, right? It wouldn't be like a Tuesday afternoon without it.
Oh, boy. Yeah, we really are just up to speed on everything.
Each other, yeah.
Yeah.
I have to say, the one thing I've learned about you during the quarantine
Y'alls.
is your rage at random objects.
It's not rage at random objects, white person.
You thought the Hulk was bad. Wait till you see Phoebe's rage when the printer doesn't print.
That is not true. I don't like you freaking slandering who I am as a person.
It's not slander, Mom.
It is slander. Do I get annoyed? Yes, but we have too much stuff in this apartment,
Yeah,
trying
we
to shove a podcast studio
in our little office.
Yeah.
It's been wild. It has.
So the office, we basically can't use the space to write in anymore because we have lights everywhere. So I can be lit properly.
In it.
But that's the one thing you learn about me is that sometimes I get annoyed at the printer.
Yeah. Yeah, the only thing I've learned.
Well, let me learn you something. So
Teach me something?
you could say learn you.
Okay.
So this bitch, I'm talking about you.
Oh. I thought you were talking about somebody else. I was hoping you were talking about somebody else.
So, about a few weeks back, you were just like, oh, I'm just gonna get some storage containers so we can like tidy up the apartment here. And I was like, oh, okay, yeah, that sounds cool. So he orders some from the container store, and then before that arrives, another package arrives. And he's like, oh, this is like my special package. And I was like,
Yeah, it was.
oh. And so I was like, okay, I don't know what this special package is. We're still in the pandemic. What's so special about it? Open it up, and it's you got this game, Flight Simulator.
Microsoft's Flight Simulator 2020. Yes.
So you have
People are learning to sew during the quarantine. People
Uh-huh.
are learning to bake.
right.
I'm learning to fly.
Yeah, so you has like pedals,
Mhm.
and you have the steering wheel.
Called a yoke, but yes.
I didn't know
Yes,
what to call
a
it.
steering wheel for an aeroplane is actually pretty accurate.
I didn't know they call it a yoke.
hmm
Okay.
And I got my rudder pedals. That's what you're referring to, the pedals. Yeah.
Yes.
I don't have a throttle yet.
Yeah. So he has all this stuff, and I'm like, okay, that's fun. So then the containers get here, and he's like, oh yeah, I got all this for you, so you could pack up some of your stuff. So there's space for my Flight Simulator yoke and rudder pedals.
Objection, Your Honor.
Okay. Yes.
How many books did we have to move?
Excuse me, books are life. I'm a publisher.
So when the plane is burning and we're going down and there's no one left to fly the plane,
What? What
who are you gonna call on?
What is this?
This isn't marriage counseling, by the way.
Is this a Wesley Snipes movie where you're just gonna you're gonna fly a plane now based off of Flight Simulator?
instead of snakes on a plane, it's Bake Off on a plane, and I'm just gonna save the world. Yes.
So in this fantasy, where we're on a what is it, 747
Ooh,
flight?
that's a big plane to fly. I don't know if I can do that yet.
717, is that one?
Cessna 50 something, like really small planes where it seats like 2 people. I can handle that.
Okay, so in this fantasy where we're on some small flight to let's just say Chicago,
Sure.
and Sully, that
Yeah, I know
pilot Sully is not
Tom Hanks.
Yes, Tom Hanks. So Sully's not piloting.
No,
It's
he's unavailable for today.
right. So it's some scrub piloting, and he
Yeah.
can't handle it.
Well, he passes out from fear of flying the plane,
Okay,
and then
there's
mass panic on board. All of 2 people.
right.
So I step up, take control of the aeroplane,
Uh-huh.
do a perfect landing, and there's everyone there cheering, like at the end of Die Hard 2.
And this is all because you're playing a video game?
Because I'm learning to fly on Flight Simulator.
It's a video game.
But it's a simulator video game, yes. Like Farming Simulator 2020, you could actually farm. Or is it 2019? But you can actually farm. At least I'm not doing that.
It's also like you could just do these things in reality. Like just take a flight course in reality.
I'll just head over to Newark and just go, can I learn to fly?
No. I'm not saying you have to no, but you could take a flight class.
Yeah, for 10 Gs.
A flight class does not cost 10 Gs.
Not one, but to get your pilot's license, I reckon it's about $10,000.
Do you really want to be a pilot?
No, but that's why you fly on Flight Simulator, isn't it?
But but you're gonna fly on it enough that you could just in some world
So
save all our lives.
I'm super nerdy and set it to like super hard difficulty, so you have to do all the flight checks before you can turn on the airplane.
Wait, so when I'm in the back watching Real Housewives, you're doing fake ass flight checks?
But they're not fake because they're modeled after real airplanes. So it's like turning the fuel pump on, pumping the fuel, turn the master electrics on. Yeah. And then you take off and within 30 seconds lose control.
That is actually really cute that you do that. I'm kind of obsessed. Sorry for the noise. I'm drinking a green juice.
You think now's a good time to take a sip?
I have to stay regular.
During the taping?
During my life, I'm in my mid-thirds.
Mm-hmm.
You, what?
I was going to say, shall we get back on track
Yes.
and talk about our fantastic guest for today?
Yes, we will. I wish you the best of luck in closing. I wish you the best of luck with this flight simulator business.
I appreciate it. I flew over our apartment. I didn't crash.
And in the future, what I would appreciate is not this rope-a-dope, ruse. This, what are other words for deception? Babe, I'm so dumb.
Do you write books? Do you write books? I think you do, right?
I would just appreciate that when you are ordering something, you're like, oh, it is for the family. And it really turns out it's just because you want me to get my shit together. So you guys, we have some merch, honey, bunny.
This hoe bag loves merch so much.
I do love merch. You know what? Because it's a celebration of the memory you had at that event. So when I go to a concert, you're damn skippy on buying the merch.
It's just so funny because obviously I was a merch guy for so many years in the music industry. And now I'm dating one of those people that I would see and go, why do people buy so much of this stuff?
Remember when we went to Wimbledon? Not trying to brag, but we went to Wimbledon and I had to get all that Wimbledon merch.
And I even politely questioned your purchasing choices. I was like, do you really need a tennis player's skirt?
Okay, where is the Wimbledon fan?
Put it in the cupboard.
Oh, I did. Okay. So I have a hand fan that says Wimbledon on it.
It was pretty hot that day, so I wasn't objecting that purchase. But
the tennis skirt, I agree. I've never played tennis.
No, but you are ready at the drop of a tennis ball.
If Serena needs me for a doubles match, I'm fucking ready.
Oh my God, I would love to see you and Serena play a doubles match together.
Or maybe Naomi Osaka.
Ooh.
That
would be great. Step in and struggle.
I feel like if I were a tennis player, do you think I would ever win any majors?
I think if your heart's set on it, you can do anything.
Anyway, I buy a lot of merch, and the point is y'all gonna buy some merch too, because that's how it's gonna, the money that we get from the merch.
Do you want to try that one again? Y'all gonna buy some merch so I can buy other people's merch.
No, it's to fund this podcast, babe. So we have a t-shirt and we have a sweatshirt. And it's, if you go to PhoebeRobinson.com and click on the merch tab, you can purchase either or both. The sizing is small to 3XL. So if you want this podcast to keep going, you guys, if you want Bake Off to be able to keep editing, what's the software? Audio Plus?
Yes, Audio Plus. The industry standard Audio Plus software.
What's it called?
Adobe Premiere I use Adobe Audition, and I use Adobe After Effects.
Okay, so that's 3 softwares. You guys, how are we going to pay for this? Buy a fucking t-shirt.
So aggressive. But honestly, no pressure.
Now, moving on to the episode at hand. I think today's guest, I don't know, I feel like the universe always works in mysterious ways, not to, quote the song U2, Mysterious Ways.
Oh.
But I do think that given what happened this weekend with Ruth Bader Ginsburg passing away, just an icon, a champion of women, of society, just a level-headed person in a world that feels less sort of level-headed each passing day, that we're having the guest that we have on today, because in my opinion, I think that she's so smart and wonderful and is looking at the world in such a nuanced and complex way. So I thought that, honoring Ruth's life with our interview with Austin Channing Brown, the author of the New York Times bestselling book and a Reese Witherspoon book club pick, I'm Still Here. I just think this is such a great episode. Austin is so warm and inviting, and she does, such hard work with activism and breaking down race for people and talking about the big issues in society. I just think this is just such a special. Sorry, I had a green juice burp. It's such.
And we needed to all go through that journey with you.
Leave no person behind. And I just think it's just such a special episode to share with everyone today, because I think Austin has so many nuggets of wisdom. How did you feel about it?
She's one of these people that you talk to for 30 seconds and you automatically feel like you're about to be invited around for Sunday lunch.
Oh, that's true. Yeah.
She's so inviting to everyone, and she has some very fantastic wisdom nuggets, as you say.
It's such a phenomenal episode. I think you guys are really going to love it. I think, it's definitely one of those where if you want to sit around with some friends while you're listening to it as well, because I think it's a great conversation starter.
Yeah.
And we honestly could have talked for 2 hours, but
Plus. Yeah.
she's so easy to talk to, and she has so many wonderful things to say. So I think you guys are really going to enjoy this episode. So buckle up, get ready to learn something, get ready to feel, and hopefully laugh a little bit too. So without further ado, here's my interview with Austin Channing Brown. Hi, Austin.
Hey, girl.
Thank
So
you
excited.
This is going to be so fun. I'm really excited about you doing Black Frasier. You have just been a voice that has been so special and important during this time, and you're such a great writer, and you're a Black queen. So it's just very, very awesome to have you on the show today.
Well, I've been trying to make you my best friend for a long time, so my plan is to nail this interview.
You will. I swear to God, you will. Okay, so there is so much you have to talk about today.
Yes.
I feel like there always is every day, but I just feel like with everything going on in Wisconsin and, literally nothing happening when it comes to Breonna Taylor and countless other people, it just really feels like we're in a very sort of kind of scary point in our history in America, with 45 in office and election, pretty close to happening. I'm just sort of feeling like, what are we doing that? I know that sounds like such a ridiculous question, but there's so many times where I just go through the day and I'll be like, fine, I'll be working. And then last night when I was watching the part of the RNC, I was just like, oh my God, oh wait. This is our reality. We are in a dangerous point in history right now. And it's easy to forget that when you're doing Zooms or you're taking care of your kids or you're looking for work. And now we're back in this place where it's racism is alive and well, as it always has been.
That's
I think a lot of people are now sort of waking up to that, although I don't understand how they weren't before. I don't
Right.
want to judge anyone's journey, but yeah, I'm wondering how you're feeling first of all about the state of the nation, and also
Yeah.
secondly, because your book I'm Still Here is, got the Reese book club stamp of approval. It was already a phenomenal book anyway, but I think a lot of white women and a lot of white people in general read the book and were like, "Oh shit." You know what I mean? Like I have just not been paying attention. And so
Right.
I'm wondering sort of like not the pressure, but this sort of energy that's being blasted your way of sort of
Mhm.
being this Black person who now has to take on the work of explaining racism to white people,
Yeah.
how that can be burdensome, especially during this time. So I'm wondering, how are you doing? How are
Yeah.
you able to move forward during this
Mhm.
time that we're living in?
Phoebe, I am eating lots and lots of ice cream because it's so hard to hold both hope and despair at the same time.
Mm. Mhm.
And that really is what the work of being in anti-racism or racial justice is. It is
Yeah.
constantly holding both hope, but not this like false optimism, like everything will be okay once my kid grows up. It's not
Mhm.
like this,
Mhm.
like all we need is time.
Yeah.
Right? Like that's it. As time passes, things will inevitably get better. Like that, not that kind of hope, but the
Yeah.
hope that is like, okay, our ancestors have been through shit. We are going through shit. Like we can do this. Change is
Mhm.
still possible, right? Change was possible for them. Change is possible for me, right? Like
Yeah.
that kind of hope, but also a very real despair. Like it is wearying,
Mhm.
not just to see all these systemic injustices take place, right? So it's one level of trauma to see all these Black men dying
Yeah.
and to see Black women's murders, and right, like that's one level of despair.
Yeah.
And then there's a whole nother level of despair on top of it that is both white people denying that it's even happening,
Mhm. Mhm.
or white people with all good intentions who respond listening and learning.
Yeah. Yeah. And so, talk to me about what it must have been like to get the call that you're going to be a book club selection for Reese. Because that's so, like, truly every writer dreams of making it on some book club that's really going to amplify their message and their work.
It's true.
And I think to have, someone like Reese, who, like, I think, she probably has had to learn a lot too. And
Right.
just
right.
like not been around a lot of Black people in the way that
Right.
like she probably is now.
Mhm.
So to have that sort of like crossover and have people willing to now be able to read your message and understand
Right.
and listen to it, because in part that Reese is also like, hey guys, we all have to wake up. Like it can't just be
Yeah.
Black
Yeah.
people's job. It has to be everyone's job. So take me
Mhm.
through that moment when you got the notification about this happening.
Okay, so first of all, I think I could be wrong about this, but I think most people who get picked for Reese's Book Club know weeks in advance because they want to make sure like that the book is in
Mhm.
stock and that they can make some decisions about rollout and all these kinds of things, right?
Yeah.
But because my book got picked during the uprising, I had 3 days notice.
Wow. Wow.
And during a pandemic, right?
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
So the pandemic happens, all of my gigs stop cold, right? So I have no
Yeah.
money coming in. And
Yeah.
I'm thinking, am I going to have to work at Target, which is down the
Mhm.
street,
Mhm.
And then I'm in the car and I'm not driving. I'm in the car scrolling through email. And all of a sudden I'm seeing Reese Witherspoon's name. And I'm like, what is
Yeah.
happening? So it feels super surreal that a
Mhm.
book that I released 2 years ago
Mhm.
is now popular.
Yeah.
It's weird, Phoebe. I'm not gonna
Yeah.
lie to you. It's weird. I'll take it, but
Yeah.
it's weird.
But it's so exciting because we think about so many great Black authors and like being in the canon, especially when it comes to talking about society and race, and like
Yeah.
now to like have your book in that conversation too, I
Mhm.
feel like must be kind of like, oh, I gotta pinch me, like, is this real? And also sort of like this level of responsibility of like, oh, I am now too carrying this torch. I am now for this generation of people, like I'm able to communicate with them and they really understand more of the plight that we're going through. Like, can you talk about maybe like sort of the responsibility or the pressure you feel that comes with that?
Yeah, I have to be really careful, Phoebe, because so much of the racial justice movement is easily co-opted by white supremacy all over again. And what can happen, and the way that I used to approach sort of racial justice trainings or workshops or speaking, if I can just be completely honest, in the beginning, I tried really, really hard to make white women cry.
Whoa. Okay, I like that.
And I don't think I was like super conscious of it.
Yeah.
But somehow my definition of success became, can I make myself human enough? Can I make our struggle human enough? Can I make my words powerful enough to move the white people who are sitting in front of me? And if I can get them to cry, like if they're that emotionally invested, then maybe that means we have moved something forward here, right?
Yeah.
Turns out that is not a good barometer of success, Phoebe. That's what I learned. I learned that is not a good barometer of success.
Yeah.
And so what I've tried to do in the last like 5-6 years or so, and especially with the book, is try to make clear that it is people of color who are dealing with racism, right? We are not the issue. The issue is the racism that we are all trying to navigate.
Yeah.
And so instead of trying to make white people feel anything, what if I tried to affirm our experience? What if I tried to name what it is that we're facing? What if I gave a training or a workshop and Black women actually wanted to come back?
Yeah.
That would be unheard of.
That would
like
be
a
amazing.
diversity training that we want to come back to.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I confess to you that I really struggled with this last night, in particular with everything that was happening with Kenosha and the RNC and everything, and feeling like, okay, you have Twitter at your fingertips. What are you going to say?
Yeah.
And the truth is, Phoebe, is I didn't say a whole lot because I was resisting and a desire to speak to white America and to say something profound. When the truth is that most Black folks didn't need to hear anything last night other than, I see you, I hear you, and I feel the same way.
Yeah. Yeah. And so with your work in anti-racism, can you sort of talk about any sort of changes that you have seen since when you started to now, where I feel like people really sort of, anti-racism is now a term that is really said a lot, whereas maybe, you know, like even 5 years ago, not so much.
True.
Yeah.
Oh, it's true. But our lexicon for racial justice is becoming mainstream faster than anything I could have ever predicted.
Yeah.
So like for what feels like for decades, the only phrase we had was white privilege. Like that was, that was it. And even that was like accepted this much.
Yeah.
And now it's not unusual to say the term white supremacy, to say racial justice, social justice, anti-racism work. Like the fact that the nation is actually talking about abolition is bananas to me.
Yeah.
But the reality is that the language is permeating faster than its actual definitions are. So we talk about anti-racism work, but so often what people still hear is, are you racist or are you not racist? Right?
Yeah.
As opposed to what the work of anti-racism really is, which is the courage to say when injustice is happening. Right? So it isn't enough to like smile and nod. It isn't enough to be nice to the people in your neighborhood. It isn't enough, right? It isn't enough to invite your Black coworker to coffee. Like that's not what we're talking about, right? In what space are you being brave enough to say, this is not okay and this needs to change?
Yeah. So let's back up a little bit because you've done such amazing work. And I want the listeners to sort of understand like where you're coming from and how you
Sure.
got into anti-racism work and like
Sure.
how that became a thing where you're like, this is my calling. This is what I'm going to do with my life.
Mm-hmm. Oh man. So I think it started with my name, honestly, Phoebe. I tell my parents
And you
all
wrote
the
about that
time.
in the book, which is so great. Such a
Yeah.
great story. Yeah.
Oh, I tell my parents the moment they named me, my career was set. Like this, I was only going to talk about race and gender for the rest of my life. So we grew up in like the late 80s, early 90s, like when everything got personalized. It was like slapstick bracelets and keychains and those little mini license plates that I still don't know what they're actually for, right? but with coffee mugs, like everything got personalized. And if the name Austin was on whatever that little trinket was, it was always blue. So I was very aware growing up that I had a boy's name.
Yeah.
But it wasn't until one day at the library that I asked my mom, what were you thinking? What were you thinking? Why did you give me this name? And she said to me, Austin, we gave you this name because we knew that if anybody had just seen your name written, say on an application, but hadn't met you in person yet, they would assume you were a white man. And I was like,
that's heavy to hear that
okay.
at 7.
I was like, Phoebe, the only application I had filled out at that point was for the doggone library card. Like, what are we talking about right now? Right?
Yeah.
And so I definitely didn't like have a full like aha moment. But I do remember thinking, oh, that's why the librarian, the teacher, the stranger, the whoever is so shocked when they meet me. Because they thought they were getting a white guy and instead they got all of this.
Yeah.
Like I could see why that would be a little shocking.
Yeah.
But consequently, I knew growing up that the world is not, in fact, colorblind. Like there was a lie I could not believe because I watched how people's faces changed when they thought they was getting a white guy and got me instead.
Yeah. And so, I mean, throughout the book, you write so much about that moment where people realize and they sort of try to fix their face a little bit to not make it read like, oh, I thought / I hoped you were going to be a white guy. And now I have to readjust for some reason, as if you're like this space alien that is like so bizarre and not another human being, which is one of those things where, you know, whenever I talk about race with people and social media, and sometimes you get people who like, I don't want to say trolls because there's a difference. I think trolls like know exactly what they're doing, and then there are people who just don't get it and want to like try and have a conversation, and they're just like, oh, they view an act of racism as one isolated event that each Black person, each Asian person, each, you know, Latinx person has one racist incident in their life and that's it. So why not get over it? Like, what's the big deal? Not realizing, no, this is stuff that happens every day, every week, every month. And that after a while, it's almost impossible for it to not affect you. And
can we just pause for a moment? No, don't apologize. I would like for us to just pause for one moment and imagine what our lives would be like if we only had to have one instance of racism in our whole lives.
Amazing.
That's crazy. Like I can't even wrap my mind around like, I'd be like, Phoebe, have you had yours yet? It'd be like getting your period. Has it happened yet? Do you?
No, I'm still waiting.
Oh, that is too funny. No, that is definitely not how it works.
Yeah.
So that's why I really wanted to write the book, Phoebe, because I have been in predominantly white spaces for most of my life. And I was constantly reading books about the hood experience, right? So the Black person, the Black family who grows up in the hood and then gets some amazing chance to have this amazing job or go to this amazing school or, go to the Ivy
Yeah.
Leagues or goes into politics, right? But they have this like awakening of what white America really is,
Mm.
right? And it's when through the lens of whiteness, it's often viewed as, oh, so your situation was really bad and now it's really good.
Mm.
Right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think Coates has like ripped that to shreds.
Mhm.
Right? Like, I think Coates, and I think social media, and
Mhm.
I think there are a lot of people who have been like, oh no, the Black community is really special actually, and
Yeah.
if you don't know, you don't know, but
Yeah.
I need you to realize there's a lot special happening there. And what I wanted to do was to attack the other end, which is this idea that if you grew up in predominantly white spaces, then you're fine. No
Mhm.
trauma, no, do you know, like everything, it was your one racial experience.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right?
Mhm.
That one time you experienced racism, that first
Yeah.
time somebody called you the N-word.
Yeah.
And I just wanted to make plain how we daily face both systemic racism and that individual racism, because that trauma is real too.
Yeah. And the thing that I think there are so many things that I loved about the book, but I think I loved you writing about your experience talking about this stuff within the church, just because I'm not a religious person. I consider myself more spiritual than anything else, but like I don't go to church or anything. And
Sure.
so I didn't even like think about sort of the dialogue that must be happening in the church or not happening in the church because it's too
Right.
uncomfortable and everyone wants to be, polite and kind, and if you're bringing this stuff up, this means like you're trying to cause trouble, right? And
Mhm.
so I'm curious if you could just sort of talk a little bit about what your experience has been sort of trying to broach these subjects within the church and being like, hey guys, like we need to, this is affecting our lives, so we have to talk
Yeah.
about it.
Yeah, that's a great question, Phoebe. So I think the truth is that because I was attending predominantly white schools, I wasn't trying to teach nobody.
Yeah.
Right? Like I did not sort of like wake up one morning and think, you know what, I'm going to be the anti-racist teacher and
Yeah.
that is going to be it. You know what I mean? I was just trying to survive like all the other Black kids are trying to survive. But what I realized very quickly is that whiteness was the norm in all of those schools.
Yeah.
And the norm on different levels, right? So I remember sitting in a classroom being told that there are certain things we should do daily. We should brush our teeth daily, and we should change our clothes daily, and we should wash our hair daily.
Nope.
Hello? And I remember like scanning the classroom for the Black girls and be like, do, 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 do. Right? Like having this
Yeah.
silent conversation in the middle of the classroom.
Yeah.
And none of us correcting the teacher. Right? So this knowledge that our white teachers didn't necessarily know about our life, our culture, our literature, our heroes, right? All of these things became my own secret knowledge. And I learned how to hold on to those things, how to treasure those things, but how to still function in whiteness.
Yeah.
And how to get the grade that I needed and how to use the reference that I needed to use. And I learned how to smile and nod when teachers said things like, just like when you're sailing.
You're like, wait, what?
Rigging, sure. I don't know. What are you talking about? Right? Like, if you reference Ferris Bueller's Day Off one more time, I don't know what you're talking about. Have you seen The Color Purple? Can you use a movie that I know about? So it was really just trying to make it, trying to not lose my identity in a world that acted like my identity didn't exist.
Yeah. And I feel like, just to jump in, like, I've been thinking about sort of my college education because I went to Pratt
Yes.
Institute and, I had an amazing time. But, I only had one Black teacher my entire 4 years.
Yep.
And that was an African American studies class. So that's when we read, all books by Black authors. But it made me think
Yep.
about, now I'm 36, excuse me. And I'm just like, now I realize how messed up that was. Like now I
Right.
realize how much that education was not well-rounded. And
Right.
the books that I missed out on shaping my mind when I was 19. You know what I
Right.
mean? And so I think that's a thing that people don't understand. Like, yes, you could go to like a historically Black
Mhm.
college or institute if
Mhm.
you want to, but it's also like these books should be in all schools. Like all colleges should sort
Right.
of have a more inclusive curriculum. And it makes
Yep.
me think about your book being in schools, which I think is really exciting. And also just sort of like, I think people who are not people of color don't understand that when you're in an educational environment and you
Mhm.
don't study anything by people who look
Yes.
like you, even if you don't
Yes.
say anything about it, you're internalizing that and you're
That's right.
processing that like, oh, my people haven't done anything worthy of being studied and celebrated. Do you
That's
feel that way
right.
too?
Oh my goodness, Phoebe. And not only do I feel that way, I
Mm-hmm.
also feel like it explains a lot of the moral bankruptcy that exists in white America.
Mm-hmm.
Because can you imagine having not read Toni Morrison
Yeah.
or Alice Walker
Yeah.
or Langston Hughes or Nikki Giovanni or James Baldwin or right? Can you
Mm-hmm.
imagine not being exposed to the music that we've been listening to all our lives and the literature we've been reading and the movies we've been watching and the stories that we've been telling? Like, no wonder our community is so distinct,
Yeah.
which
Yeah.
doesn't seem like it should be able to be possible, right? We're
Mm-hmm.
like 13% of the population. We're spread out all over the country. It
Yeah.
really, in some ways, doesn't make sense
Mm-hmm.
that when skiwies happen in celebration of Kamala, that there are
Mm-hmm.
white people who have no idea what's happening. Like, how have we managed to actually keep our culture a secret? Like, it makes no sense. It makes no sense.
Yeah.
And yet, here we are, right? Because our culture is considered important only for us.
Mm-hmm.
And if we think it's important, then we have to go find it ourselves.
Yeah.
But the truth is, America would be better if curriculum were more diverse, if more
Mm-hmm.
voices were present. But America, for the most part, just isn't interested.
Yeah, which is I sometimes want to be like, you're lost, but I'm also like, come on, you guys, just freaking open the door. Like, why are you being so dumb about this? Which,
I
it's
know
wasted
that's a
energy, but
very Zora Neale Hurston response, where she's
yeah.
like, I don't understand why anyone would deny themselves the pleasure of me, but okay. Like, I don't understand it, but if you don't want all of this, all right.
Okay, so as we're looking at the world now,
Mhm.
and I feel like we're in kind of dark times a little bit.
Yeah.
How are you sort of seeing anti-racism work progressing during this period? Because I think we're really
Mhm.
in a place where it's like you can be a white man with a rifle and go down the street and shoot people and it's fine. Like
It's
that's a very scary
unreal.
place to be in. And so I'm wondering
Yeah.
how you're feeling like the work is going to be able to counteract that sort of rage and violence that we're facing every day.
The truth is, Hebe, I don't know. I don't
Yeah.
know. The things that I find encouraging that is different from the legacy of our past
Mm-hmm.
is that women, Black women in particular, are much more at the forefront
Mm-hmm.
than we have in any time past, right?
Yeah.
So Black women have been the backbone of every major civil
Mm-hmm.
rights movement since forever. But we've often had to stay in the background, be at the
Yeah.
copy machine, organizing the event, but not speaking at the event,
Mm-hmm.
right? And because of social media and because of all that work, we now get to write our own books and we now
Yeah.
get to tweet and we now get to say, oh no, this is my thought and you will not take credit for my
Mm-hmm.
thought, right? And there's something really special about that. But it also makes me nervous for us because
Yeah.
we have been doing this work for so long and because it is such dangerous work. And that's really what white people don't like to talk about. White people really like to talk about how their hearts and minds are being changed, or how they're listening and reading, or
Yeah.
how they're, you know what I mean? But the truth is that when we do this work, there is every possibility that you and I are going to get a death threat after this releases.
Yeah.
You know
Yeah.
what I mean? Like there are real consequences. I'll never forget Tarana Burke talking about doing an event when we could still do those in person. And and there was a white couple who disagreed with what she was saying and were waiting for her at her car when she left the building.
What?
Right? I know
Wow.
speakers who specifically talk about racial justice who have a security clause in their rider that is about noting where the exits are and always having someone involved in security nearby. And right, like us having to
Yeah.
think through not just the state of affairs of the world, but also think through how to make sure we make it back home to our families.
Yeah.
And it's a lot. It's a lot.
Yeah. And so I want to go back to you talking about how Black women are now really much more at the forefront than
Mm,
they've ever been. And so
yeah.
I'm curious as to how you feel about that. Like how, like, is that empowering for you? Are you feeling sort of like, oh my God, I can use my voice in a way that like the women who came before me couldn't? Because I know that like
Yeah.
it's really hard, I think, for women in general, but I think women of color to really be okay with using their voice because, like you said, there's threats, there's like people making you feel bad about yourself, that you could lose job opportunities.
Yep.
Like
Yep.
so much could happen when you're being outspoken, but now it feels like there's more of a place for us to raise our voices and people will be receptive to that.
Yeah, it's always a both and, right, Phoebe? Like it's always this duality. So it's better than it was.
Yeah.
Right? But if we like polled Instagram right now for like the major racial justice voices, I'm sure it would still be predominantly men that would get
Yeah.
listed, right? But there's no denying that so much of the work that these men are writing on or have been shaped by has come from women, like Bell Hooks, like Toni
Yeah.
Morrison, like Audre Lorde, like, right? Like our influence is outsized compared to our reaping the rewards, if you
Yeah.
will.
Yeah.
Right? And so it is this duality, but I think most of us are incredibly inspired by the women who had less and still spoke more. Right? So
Yeah.
Ida B. Wells talk about death threats,
Yeah.
right? Like,
Yeah.
like burning her shit down, like chasing her out of town. And yet she would still write that not only are Black men not actually being lynched because they're raping white women, but the truth is that white women actually really like them Black men, and that is why they must be lynched. Right? Like, holy shit.
Yeah.
Like, that is a hardcore thing to write
Yeah.
when people can literally chase you out of town.
I know.
So I think we are finding our voices for this time. And I'm really proud of the women who are doing that, and in multiple spheres, Phoebe, because it is one thing to like actively push the buttons of white America by talking about race and racism. But the truth is there are white people who are offended by Black women CEOs and by Black women with their own podcast and Black women who get to be on HBO and Black, you know what I mean? Like, right? Because America has been set up so that with the idea that Black folks are naturally inferior. And so when we succeed, when we make it, it crumbles. That idea crumbles. And so I think the very existence of Black folks is resistance enough. I think the fact that we're here is resistance enough. If you ain't do nothing else, Phoebe, you being here, right, is resistance enough. You are a Black girl who can laugh. That is huge, right? Um, and so I think we're in a place in America where we are all figuring out what our place in the movement is
Mm.
and trying desperately to hold on to that and not shrink from what is our moment to shine.
Yeah. And so, one of the things I'm really inspired by is seeing on social media all these teens and seeing people in their early 20s
Yeah,
going out and being so vocal in a way that when I was 25 or 21, I just wasn't. Like, it just
I
wasn't,
know.
I just was not as, like, I don't know. I don't want to say like politically active, but it didn't occur to me that, like, oh, this is something that I need to be doing.
Right, right.
And now we're seeing this swell from like the youth just really like going being so loud, being so vocal. And I'm wondering if you have like sort of like if you could tell your younger self when you were
Yeah.
getting into anti-racism work, like,
Mhm.
here are the things I wish I had known and here are the things that like I wish I did more of when I was younger. What would you
Yeah.
say?
Wow. Well, first of all, I'm really proud of the young people
Mm-hmm.
who, I mean, I just did a youth teach-in the other day, and at the end, their Q&A was like, okay, but can you tell me more about intersectionality and what I should be doing about that? And I was like,
Amazing.
hello. I'm so sorry I did not cover that in my lecture. Right? I'm so sorry. But they know so much more. And I used to work on a college campus for about 4 years. And I would have students who would come to me, Phoebe, and tell me that they couldn't sleep because they were constantly learning, right? Because of their phones, they could just scroll from article to article to article, and they had a hard time turning it off
Yeah.
and not just like consuming more and more and more information. And so it's astounding what students know now. But I also have to say, Phoebe, part of what I'm fighting for is for our kids to be able to just be kids.
Yeah.
I think it's great that they're politically active, and I think that will have real impact, real change, right? I don't believe that there's like the youth impact and the adult impact,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like if
Mm-hmm.
you're a person, you'll have impact. There's like a junior impact and a senior impact, right? um, but part of me also just wants them to watch movies and just wants them to be on TikTok goofing around and
Yeah.
just wants them to, to just frolic. I want them to frolic. I want
Yeah.
them to I want them to play in the sprinkler. I want them
Yeah.
to, um so man, for my younger self, who knows? She was just trying to figure it out, Phoebe.
Mm-hmm.
She
Yeah,
was just trying to figure
same.
out who she is and where she belongs and when she could get rid of those thick, ugly glasses and, when would she be old enough for contacts? Like she was just trying to figure it out.
So I know you said you want the youth to be able to just sort of like frolic and have fun and not just be weighted down by anti-racism work. So I guess before I go to audience questions, my last
Mhm.
question for you is sort of how are you taking care of yourself right now?
That's a
How are
great
you able to
question.
take off the jacket of being the teacher of anti-racism and writing about this and speaking about this and doing podcasts about this and
Yeah.
just be able to be Austin?
Yeah, so the truth is that I really do love this. Like
Mm-hmm.
I would do this every day of the week. But but burnout is real even when you love it, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so instead of thinking about self-care as recovery, right? That I need to do my facial and use my jade roller because I am now recovering from having been with Phoebe, right? Like instead of thinking
Yeah.
about it like that,
Yeah.
I'm trying really hard to think about how I include self-care as part of my work.
Mm.
So for example, because the pandemic is just altogether too much, I have decided that every 6 to 8 weeks, I'm going to take either a week off or a long weekend.
Nice.
Because I just need there to be weeks that I know are coming, like
Mm-hmm.
that are marked out on the calendar when I know I don't have to do this, right? And
Yeah.
I know that I can just go frolic or I can watch Netflix or I can do whatever else it is that fancies me at the time,
Mm-hmm.
right? I'm also thinking about like how I literally insert joy into my work. So every time I give a workshop, I'm I kind of use it as my opportunity to pretend that I'm a stand-up comedian. It's like my two dope queens moment, you know? I'm like,
Yes.
how many times can I get them to laugh at the absurdity of racism? But I think any projects that I take on, at least in the next couple of years, if it's not infused with joy, then I might have to say no. So I'm just trying really hard to think about not just how I recover from the work, but how I do the work in the first place.
Yeah. And I hope there's going to be more books from you.
I hope so.
Fingers crossed. We can
I
talk
hope
offline about
so.
it, but I
Let's
want there to
talk
be
about
more.
it offline, but my
Yeah.
fingers are crossed.
Yeah, I want there to
There
be
might
more
be
books.
something in the works, maybe.
So excited. Okay, cool. Okay, so I want to move to audience questions because we got some
Yeah, let's
really
do that.
good ones today. And I just think people are really just excited to sort of just like get your wisdom on like how to navigate certain
All of this.
things.
Oh,
Yeah.
God.
Yeah. Okay. Okay, let's start with this one. This is from Holly in Los Angeles.
Mhm.
She writes, did any white church ladies in your orbit, either at work or at church, read your book and actually learn from it and discuss it with you?
Oh, that's interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so here's how the book unfolded. So
Okay.
I was working at, all these predominantly white organizations. Ta-Nehisi Coates' book, Between the World and Me, gets released and is like
Yeah.
a firestorm, right? And I'm like, ooh, good. Now publishers realize that Black stories matter again,
Mhm.
right? And so I submit my proposal and I'm like, here's a Black girl story about growing up around white people.
Yeah.
And she's like, so you want to write a memoir about white women touching your hair? Like that's it? And I was like,
Oh my
that's
gosh. People
that's exactly it.
Yeah. Like, why is it
She
even
was
a
like,
question?
why is that even a question? And she told me no. She was like, you're not famous. Like a book like that isn't going to sell. You can't write a memoir
Same.
if you're not famous.
Happened. Yep. I
Right?
heard that too. Yep.
Uh-huh. So I held on to it, right? And
And when was
eventually I ended up-
this? When was this? Was like 2015?
Yeah, this
Okay,
was like just before Ferguson. So
Okay. Yeah.
Ferguson hadn't happened yet, but Trayvon Martin was like
Mhm.
unfolding. So whenever
Mhm.
that season is. So I keep working, keep writing. I start my own blog, and eventually editors are looking for me, right? And so by the time I actually get picked up to write a book, I'm working at a Christian college. I'm a resident director. So I'm
Mhm.
directing a dormitory of 240 18 and 19-year-olds in my
Wow.
spare time writing a book.
Wow.
I know.
Yeah, that's a lot.
I also get pregnant, Phoebe. So now I'm pregnant, a dorm director, and I'm writing
Oh
a
my
book.
gosh.
And when I turned in that last draft, I also quit my job. I was like,
Wow.
I'm
You were going for it. Yeah.
done. I'm done. Give me the advance. I will live on it for a year. If I
Yeah.
have to go get a job after that, so be it. But I'm taking my chance.
Yeah.
That is a very long way of answering the question and saying I actually didn't have to talk to any white people about it because I quit my job before the book came out.
That's baller. Did any of them come up to you after the book came out and be like, Austin, can we talk about this? And you're just like, I
Not the
can't right
ones who
now.
knew they were in it.
Amazing. They were like, I have nothing to say to her now.
Right?
I'm in this book. I know she's talking about me.
In all seriousness, though, Phoebe, one of the things I worry about, because I hope that the first line indicates that I wrote this book for Black women, right? But my fear is always that once the coworkers, the white coworkers of Black women read the book, that they are going to get peppered with all these questions and offers for coffee dates and all the
Yeah.
things. It was a worry of mine, actually.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel like that's understandable. And I think that, like, not to excuse it, but I think sometimes white people think like, oh, this is the way that I can make it better, and like they're just not understanding. Like, it's not about like a coffee date. It's not about like being nice. It's about like changing your behavior and the behavior of the people around you when
That's right.
a lot of that behavior is not seen by other people, right? Like,
That's
but
right.
we know when something is being said that's inappropriate or is racist that other people can't see. It's
That's
about
exactly
recognizing
right.
that behavior, and
Yes.
that requires more work. You know what I mean?
A
And
lot
that's
more work.
yeah,
And I'm not giving you cookies for smiling and nodding at me.
yeah. Your face.
I'm not giving you cookies because you offered to go get me a bottle of water after people interrupted me for the last hour in this meeting. I'm trying not to throw the bottle of water at you. God.
So I hope that answers your question, Holly. Okay, this is a great one. This is from Brenna in Springfield, Illinois. She writes, "How has your Christian faith been challenged in the face of racism?"
I am really fortunate to have had parallel experiences in which I was navigating white Christianity, but also was being nurtured by Black Christianity.
Yeah.
I think if I hadn't had a Black church and all I knew about God had come from the white places that I would be in, there would have come a point where there would have been some sort of like trauma, reckoning, falling apart. Something. I was like, now who is God and what does God want? Like, I am very confused. But I'm grateful to have had a Black church. So the way that I sort of clarify this for people is that I would go to like chapel services at school, and the male speaker would get up and he would say, you know, your words are like this tube of toothpaste. And when I squeeze this tube of toothpaste, see how it all comes out? Now I want one of you students, please come try and put the toothpaste back in the bottle. This is like your words, right? It's so hard to put back away. So you got to think about how you treat your sibling and how you talk to your parents and how you, right? And I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
And right. And now do you accept Jesus Christ as your personal savior, right? Like that's how that went, right? But then I would go to my Black church and the pastor would be like, and in the second book of Exodus, we find that God himself comes down from heaven and frees the slaves, right? Like two very different understandings of what God wants from us, Phoebe.
Yeah.
Right? And so honestly, it's been a gift to not even think that there is one form of Christian religion, to not think that there is one form of understanding God, even in a Christian context, that I grew up very much connected to this idea that God cares about sex workers and God cares about my auntie who can't afford a car but needs to get to work. And God cares about those who got to go to the courtroom or those who are in the doctor's room or those who are, right? That there is a faith that I was able to have that is very much connected to themes of race and justice and womanhood. And so I didn't have a falling apart that I think a lot of white evangelicals have.
I'm glad that didn't happen to you. Oh, that's so good. Okay, so this question is from one of my closest friends. I feel like I've known him like almost half my life. He's also a stand-up comic. His name is Baron. I love him. He has two cute little Coco kids. So Baron writes, everyone, Black people included, are shocked and amazed white supremacists are here killing other white people as well during these protests. Personally, I think it's a return of the N-word lover, as if these are quote unquote bad whites who are quote unquote race traitors. Your thoughts on white anti-whiteness? when I got this question, I was like, this is above my pay grade. I don't know what to say. This is very learned of you, Baron. I'm going to leave this to Austin.
Baron, where are the laughs? Is there a punchline? I don't. Good God. All right. Well, that's a really good question. So the truth is that here's why this question is tricky. There is the Black experience in the pursuit of racial justice, right? And then for the ally, co-conspirator, co-laborer, whatever you want to call it, for the white person who is committed to racial justice, that is a very different experience.
Yeah.
And sometimes if we're not careful, we can make them sound like, even though the experiences are different, that they are the same weight. And they're not, right? So the Black person pursuing racial justice in America that hates us is on another level, right? But that doesn't mean that white people who are committed to anti-racism aren't also experiencing frustration, loneliness, depression, and now in many cases, not many, in some cases are paying for it with their lives.
Yeah.
And I think it's important for white people to talk more about that.
Yeah.
Historically, white people have white allies when push comes to shove, have been willing to be martyrs. You know, the white guys who have died recently are part of a legacy of white allies who have given their lives for racial justice. And I say that not to minimize, but to connect, right? To connect to this long legacy of a multiracial campaign for justice, right?
Yeah.
But it is true that white people who commit themselves to anti-racism work, they might lose their jobs, their families might stop talking to them, their friends might turn away. They can't go home for Christmas anymore because their parents feel like, I don't know who you are anymore. There are very real costs. There can be very real costs for white folks who are committed, and other white folks hate them too.
Yeah. We are in such a damn mess right now. Okay.
It's such a mess, Phoebe. It's such a mess.
This is from Rochelle in SoCal, and like this question, I was like, I felt it in my soul. So Rochelle writes, I'm a Black woman, angry as hell and feeling paralyzed by anger and sadness. How can I move forward? Which I think is something that so many people, myself included, are sort of figuring like, how can we move forward? Like, we're living in a world with all this unrest. We're living in a world where we're still expected to show up and do work and compartmentalize the trauma that we're absorbing. We're still supposed to be hopeful. We're thinking back to Obama in 2008, like the hope and yes, we can and all this stuff. And it feels so far away now in 2020.
So far away.
So how can we move forward?
Yeah. So in some ways, moving forward is all Black folks know.
Yeah.
Like, that's all we know. And the reason why it's all we know is because sometimes we do this work as part of the legacy of our ancestors. I feel like I've talked a lot about our ancestors in this conversation. Sometimes we do it for our children or the children that we love, right?
Yeah.
But I think, honestly, Phoebe, I think at the core, we do it for ourselves. Because the truth is that you as an individual, you as Phoebe Robinson are worthy of your inherent dignity being honored by this country.
Yeah.
I am worthy of my inherent dignity being honored when I step outside of my house. I am worthy of my culture being honored when I am at school. I am worthy of being spoken to with respect when I do get pulled over. I am worthy of receiving the same treatment by the systems and structures of America that everybody else gets. I'm worthy. And because I'm worthy, stopping isn't an option. right? And so I think what is important for us to do are a couple things. One, we do have to realize that we are all in this work together. And that is why last night I was able to eat 3 different kinds of ice cream and take my ass to bed. Right? Because this whole project called racial justice does not depend on me. Right? It depends on the organizers in Chicago, and it depends on the protesters in Kenosha, and it depends on the attorneys who are trying to set folks free, and it depends on the nurses and the doctors who are working on medical racism, and it depends on all of us. And so that means you get to take a time out. That means you get to take a time out because we're in this together. There's no. Even MLK, who was propped up as like the savior of Black folks, right? Yeah. Phoebe, tell me what an MLK speech looks like if ain't nobody there to listen to it.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. Like King wasn't the sort of like isolated Jesus character who came down from heaven and like just spoke into the hearts of men, right? Like there were organizers around him. There were protesters around him. There were people he was in conversation with, people he was talking with while he was doing stuff wherever he was. Robert Abernathy was doing stuff other places, and John Lewis was doing stuff other places, and Nina Simone was writing Mississippi Goddamn, and you know what I mean? Yeah. Like it has always been all of us. And so I think it's important that when we feel sad or when we feel hopeless, when we feel despair, when we feel weariness, that we're honest about that, and that we take the time to take care of ourselves, knowing that we will get back to the work when we're ready. And that the work doesn't stop just because I stopped.
That was honestly the perfect answer. Yay. And the perfect way to end this conversation. That was so inspiring. I'm so excited and so happy for your success. And, you know, I think of all the things that we touched on today. I think one of the things that makes me so excited about you is I think so often that Black women's work and their voices are left out of the conversation. Yes. And I love that you are being just so uplifted, and so there's such a bright light shined on you and the work that you're doing and the work that you're writing. I think it's so important. I'm so, so happy for you. So thank you so much for doing Black Frasier today.
Really, this was such a joy.
Yay! Okay, good. Bake Off. Was that not the best?
That was a lovely episode.
Yeah.
I enjoyed that a lot.
I miss her.
Like I said before, I want us to have Sunday lunch together. Have crumpets and tea.
Bloody crumpets.
Hang out.
Yeah.
I feel like she can teach, or the conversations we'll have will be fantastic.
Yeah, and I feel like if we did do a double date with her and her bae, it would be so cute. It would be really yummy. But she doesn't live in New York.
Wait till this bloody pandemic's over.
And then you could fly us.
Oh, I will. Hop in my Cessna and off we go, eh?
You guys, as per usual, we are shouting out a Black business, Black-owned business. And today I thought, you know, you guys have seen the logo, the key art. Is that what they call in the biz?
No, just logo.
But I thought key art is a phrase.
I don't
just logo?
Not in Audio Plus, it's not.
Oh my God. Okay, so I guess it's not, key art is not what it's called. It's just the logo for Black Frasier. This woman is a queen. She's a really cool illustrator. And she's done other stuff for me in the past, which has always been fantastic. So I want to shout her out. You could go to her Instagram. It is B Peppers Art. That's B as in boy.
B as in poise. I see you still haven't gotten hang of the phonetic alphabet.
B as in boy, P as in Paul, E as in Eric, P as in Patricia, P as in Phyllis, E as in Elijah, R as in Ronald, A as in Alicia, R as in Robinson, T as in Tiara.
Who are all these people? It's like the strangest game of Guess Who.
Anyway, the point is, follow her on Instagram. She has a link to her shop. She has a store on society6.com, and then you can buy like all these really cool prints that she has. They're so stunning. Like, look at this stuff, babe. They're stunning.
Oh yeah, that's really good.
It's so good. She's so cool. So shout out to B Pepper's art. Support Brianna. Okay, you guys?
Okay.
Reddit! Hosted by Phoebe Lynn Robinson. Produced by Phoebe Lynn Robinson and British Bake Off. Edited by British Bake Off using Audio Plus. And theme song, Gavin Turek. I guess that's it.
Mm-hmm.
You sure you don't want to like hang out and talk some more?
Nah, I'm good. I'm gonna go back to audio class.